Yes. Yes, I can take us live.
Hi,
we're live.
Hi, we're live. And this always happens to us, and that's okay.
Oh, Lord.
I don't know what's
We're a
going on.
good
My computer's being weird. But of course, it's Tuesday night. Would it ever be a Tuesday night without something going wrong or being weird? Not at all.
No.
Nope.
Always. Welcome, everybody, to the OurTurf Football Podcast. You've got me, Sonia. You've got Kate to my whatever. And down below us, you got Lisa. Welcome, everybody. And before we forget, we'd like to thank our returning sponsor 4 years in a row. 4 years in a row.
4.
West Side.
Donkeys has the best cheesesteak this side of wherever. So yes, Donkeys Cheesesteaks has sponsored us again for the 4th season in a row. We are super thankful, so happy to have them back as always. So yes, remember, if you're in New Jersey, make sure you stop by one of their locations in Camden, in Medford, or Mount Holly. Tell them the OurTurf ladies sent you. And then Mount Holly, yes. And even if you're not in New Jersey, if you are in the 48 states, you can still order. Go to goldbelly.com, search in Donkey's Place, put in your order. It's fantastic. Go ahead and do that this weekend. Actually, just do it now.
Yeah, we'll wait for you.
We'll wait, and then you can do it tomorrow, okay? And eat tomorrow. So that'll be perfect because it gets delivered fresh.
Put a reminder on your phone to do it later and then have it delivered so you can eat it while you're watching our show next Tuesday.
There you go. That's exactly what we're going to do. Oh, my God. So you guys. This side of wherever.
Oh, if you're watching us on Facebook or Twitter, thank you. We love you. If you want to talk and interact with us, come on over to YouTube. You can comment. We can comment back. We can put your comments on the screen. We can see your questions on YouTube and answer them. It's the only platform where we can see your questions and you can interact with us. So wherever you're watching, we appreciate you. But please come on over to YouTube. Like and follow and subscribe and all the things. So then you'll get notified every time we go live.
Yes, exactly. Via email. So, now that I think we've done all our little housekeeping, yes, exactly, Big Red. We are talking the NFC East tonight. So excited to talk about that. That's my division. I like rivalries. Kate and I participate in the best rivalry in all of college football and all of sport, let's be honest. So I love a good rivalry, and the NFC East just has a bunch of it. I think like the AFC North, y'all have a rivalry and y'all just like straight up hate each other. Just hate each other. I don't think you guys really can stand each other. NFC East, y'all really do not like each other. But I think in the end, there's a slight cap tip. Just a slight, not a big one, but just a slight cap tip. But that's just my take, I think.
They're going through what we went through in the AFC North. Mm-hmm. Is that the Browns were trash for so many years that the Steelers don't take us seriously anymore. And you had the Browns moving to Baltimore. So then there's a Baltimore Steelers thing kind of going on. And then now that we're all good, the Browns are trying to rival with people and they're still not taking us seriously. And we can't rival with Cincinnati because they're it's a whole thing. In the NFC East, it was Cowboys in Washington for so long, and then Washington has been so bad, and then it was Eagles Giants, and the Giants have just been so bad for like the last 15 years that it's really turned into more Cowboys Eagles because they're at the top of the division. They're better teams, it's better games, but in looking over last season's records, wins and losses and those kind of things, there are a lot of division where those in-division games during the year are very surprising because teams like that'll win 6 games all year will win 3 of them in the division. Like, you know what I mean? Like they play their division harder than they play the rest of the league. And this is one of those divisions. Those matchups are always tough no matter how bad some of the teams are.
Oh, agreed. And I mean, they say that there's like a prime time, like Cowboys love primetime and stuff like that. I mean, because this is why. And it literally anything can happen when the NFC East teams play each other, and it's just a lot of fun to watch. And it's really a lot of fun to watch on Twitter/X/whatever, because those fans really go at it, and I love to watch all of them. So yeah, it's fun. All right, so we're gonna go in the order that we did last week. We're gonna take it by division standings at the end of the season last season. So let's start, I think, with the Cowboys then, correct? No, I'm sorry, the Eagles.
The Cowboys won this division last year, 12-5.
Okay, sorry.
They had a great season. They were steady and strong all year. Get to the playoffs. They were a 2 seed, and they lost to the 7 seed Packers. And it was ugly. And there were a lot of people, including some of us, wondering if Dakota would be back this year, if their head coach would be back, like whose head was going to roll. Jerry Jones is not the kind of owner to be happy with 10, 12, 13 win seasons if they don't pay off in the playoffs. So they've got a lot riding on this season. They've got a lot to prove. Sonia, did they make any changes in the offseason that'll help them get a little deeper into the playoffs?
I don't know. I mean, okay, so what? They got rid of Kellen Moore, their offensive coordinator. I think that was pretty big. They hired Dan Zimmer as their new defensive coordinator, taking over the spot of Dan Quinn, who left the Cowboys. So they re-signed Zach Martin really big for that offensive line. That has been a strength of theirs, I think. Brought back Micah Parsons and that other guy, that running back that was in New England. They brought him back, Ezekiel Elliott. Now, while he's not the Ezekiel Elliott of old, he might be able to create some magic. And then you have the Dak question. He's not answering that right now about his contract. I mean, he'll be there. He'll be at camp. But, this is going to be a big year for him, I think. Yeah, that's my thought. Who did they get rid of? They lost Tony Pollard. And he's a loss, I think. I think right now Ezekiel and Tony Pollard, in my mind, are pretty much the same player, I think. I mean, caliber player. I won't say, style, they're different, but caliber player, I think, is what you're going to get, because Ezekiel is not the Ezekiel of old. And then they lost Marcavius Bryant as well. So they lost a few.
Yeah. I mean, when Zeke and Tony were both on the team, there just weren't enough. When you have a quarterback like Dak, there aren't enough touches for 2 stellar running backs. So one of them had to go. Zeke left. Tony was willing to stay, thinking they'd pay him. They didn't. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons. Last year, their next nearest longest yardage rusher was like in the 300s. So when they let him go to Tennessee, they had to get somebody back. And I guess Zeke was their best option. We'll see. We'll see what he's still got in the tank.
Yeah.
I just thought it was telling that when I Googled the Dallas Cowboy offseason moves, all the articles talked about was them getting Mike Zimmer. There wasn't that player they got.
Mm-hmm.
This is another team where maybe their best offseason move was a coach. And for, like, when we talk about the Chargers getting evil Harbaugh, that's a big deal. For Dallas, I think that while I love Mike Zimmer, I think getting him isn't that big, but it's big when they didn't do anything else.
Agreed.
Lisa, what's Dakota going to do?
Probably the same thing he always does. They'll win enough all season. The thing is getting deep into the playoffs. I mean, this team can win. They already proved. I mean, every single thing. But even since Romo, since Aikman left, it's the same thing with when you have great quarterbacks and great runs like the Cowboys did. And I hate to say it, but I kind of agree with Cam Newton. This isn't America's team anymore. This team isn't winning.
No.
You know, when you look at the prospect, everybody you talk to that kind of just mediocre knows football, Kansas City Chiefs right now, they're winning. They got the elite quarterback. They got Super Bowl wins. You know, this isn't the Cowboys of the 90s and 2000s that we're used to that, you know, we're going to the playoffs and deep into the playoffs. They can't get past the first round of the playoffs now. And I think what hurts so much if you're a Cowboys fan is they don't like just barely get beat in the playoffs. They get hammered in the playoffs. It's like they just so you just kind of wonder with Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, to me, it's like have a different offense in the second half of the season. You know, try to save them. Don't try to burn them out right away. And I think a lot of times there's got to be some kind of answer to get this team past a game in the playoffs. And I don't know, it's almost like they're jinxed or something because it's like they just fall apart. And you know, Mike McCarthy's been there before. It's not like, you know, he's not new to this. So
No.
the pressure shouldn't be there. I mean, I just don't know what it is getting there. And I think until Dak does that, it'll be just the same discussion year after year that we have. Exactly what you have in Dak. Like one more year of going to the playoffs and not making it past the first round, that's pretty much going to, to me, solidify where Dak Prescott is. And you're going to have to go right into that medium range.
Hi, Dana.
Hi, Dana. Dana's watching from Montana.
You know, so Dak's one of my favorite quarterbacks. He threw for over 4,500 yards last year. His
he gets it done.
touchdown to interception ratio was like 4-1. His numbers are great,
right?
But he's missing something in those big games to get them.
Mhm.
When I pulled his stats from just that Green Bay playoff game, I'm like, whose numbers are these? This is not the Dak that we had all season.
Right. But here's my question. When do we put Dak in the Kirk Cousins discussion? Right?
I think he's beige.
Great numbers.
Lisa, you are absolutely right. If they don't get past the first round of the playoffs this year, I'm with you. I'm officially adding Dak to the Kirk Cousins list. If you just want to win regular season games, he's your guy. He's your dude. Get him. If you
Good numbers,
games,
winning record.
You need scary Pat Mahomes. Like Pat Mahomes didn't even win that many games last year. He was so hot and cold. But it will come to the playoffs. He is laser focused and it's getting done. And he finds a way to drag that team to victory. And Dak in there, yeah.
And that's what elite to top tier quarterbacks do. They will their teams to win. They put their teams on their back. They do extraordinary things that make these players run through a brick wall for them. And that's what's missing. Is that what's missing? Is this like when we get to the playoffs, let's, you know, rally around Dak. It just doesn't seem like it's there. It's like there's no mojo when they hit the playoffs.
There's no second level.
Right.
For some teams, I think we saw it last year with the Houston Texans. They played well all year, and then they got to the playoffs, and it was almost like they took their game up a notch to get as far into the playoffs as they got. Dallas plays that same game all year, and you get to the playoffs, and you're against the Green Bay Packers team last year who kicked it up a notch, and Dallas stayed right where they were. They don't have that. I don't know that it's pressure that keeps them down or if it's just the ceiling of, all right, guys, motivate up, take it up a level. They don't. Habitually, they don't.
They haven't. And, I say this is everybody's year. Like this has to be it, or else I think Dak for sure is gone and Mike McCarthy are gone. So, I mean, that's my thought. That's my take, that this is a very big year for them. I don't know. Dak has been very beige. He has been very beige. And I can't think of any other thing that he can do or needs to do. I mean, he just needs to win in the playoffs, and he can't. He just can't. Is it Dak or is it coaching in the playoffs? And that's what Kristen's asking. And
they've won 4 playoff games in the last 20 years.
And it's not that they don't have the coaches that have the experience in playoff games and Super Bowls. Right. I mean, that's what I'm saying. So it's hard. Is it coaching down into the second tier into the team? I don't know if it's defense. I don't know. All I know is when you get to that level of the playoffs, this is a different team that we see. So it's just a mediocre beige blah team in the playoffs.
Well,
Agreed.
I'll use that to segue into the Philadelphia Eagles. Are they becoming beige? The Eagles went 11-6 last year, another great season, and then they lost in the wild card round of the playoffs to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so both of these teams, Dallas and Philly, go out in the wild card round. Tampa and Green Bay go out in the next round. It's not even like they lost to someone who eventually went to the championship or the Super Bowl. The Eagles at 11-6 were nipping on Dallas's heels. Do they, Sonia, what did they do in the offseason? Did they add anything do they think they need to add anything? Do you know what I mean? Some teams don't think they needed to add anything.
The biggest thing that they added, who did they add? They added Saquon Barkley. And I think that was pretty, I mean, they lost Swift, DeAndre Swift, and replaced him with Saquon Barkley, who I think, injuries aside, I think he might be pretty decent. I mean, their line has been nothing but phenomenal. Their offensive line has been nothing but phenomenal. And so I think that Saquon will have the ability to do some things back there. They've got Devontae Smith as their wide receiver. So I think their offense will be pretty okay. Who else did they get? On the defensive side, they got
Hurts was their second best rusher. He had over 600 yards last year.
Exactly.
The addition of Saquon is someone defenses have to pay attention to, which means you may see more Jalen Hurts runs. Or if they're staying on him, Saquon may get more yards. You may see a lot more ground yards this year because they have such a strong option at running back now.
Yep. Who else? CJ GJ from Detroit came back. Defensive back from Detroit came back to them. And they also got a quarterback in a trade. They got Kenny Pickett, Mr. Kenny Pickett in a trade. I just basically said that because of Lisa, and Lisa loves her quarterback, so I just had to throw that in there. Losses, biggest one, or one of the bigger ones, obviously Jason Kelce retired at the end of the season. Really big presence on that line, I think. But I like their line. I think it's been actually very balanced. So I think that they drafted mostly defense, but I think that they will be okay. That line has been pretty solid, and I don't see, while it'll be a loss, I don't see it like backstepping that much. They didn't draft anybody like too flashy or anything like that. I think their draft was pretty what they needed, mostly defense, but yeah, so I think those were the biggest gains and losses for the team, or additions and subtractions to the team.
I mean, their turnover ratio last year was -11.
Yeah. Well, it showed. It showed.
That's not good.
No. And when you look at them down the stretch and you go into the ads and the losses, the biggest takeaway I had with the Eagles at the season end meltdown was defensively. I'm going to defense a part of this. And, that's why you're seeing Vic Fangio in the building. That's why you're seeing a change in the style of defense that this is going to run, because I just think that, so to me, adding Saquon just tells you that Jalen was just running the ball too much. Your quarterback had 15, it set an NFL record of 15 rushing touchdowns, just under Josh Allen, or just over Josh Allen. So once again, that tells you, do you want to be a coach that has almost your quarterback leading in your rushing touchdowns? Hell no, you don't, because that's going to open up to injury. It's going to open up to, obviously these are broken plays. Obviously you're not going to call except for that stupid tush push crap. So to me, adding Saquon, hopefully we won't see a lot of that anymore. I think, like you said, it's going to take focus off of Jalen Hurts, going to give a little pressure take a little pressure off, because I mean, there's a lot of question marks with Jalen. There's still a lot of questions. There's a lot of people that don't believe in this kid. He's dropped out of a lot of the ratings in the quarterbacks to where, just a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we're talking about him being a rookie sensation and just taking the NFL by storm. And now that's kind of backed up a little bit because you're seeing the type of offense that the Eagles were running, which were he's flushed out of the pocket a lot. We had that tush push, so I think you're going to see a different dynamic in the Eagles, because I think at the end of the season, they figured out something was going wrong. Something's, you're scoring some points, but you're giving up a lot of points. So defensively, I think it was a big letdown for Eagles fans. Like I said, a lot of question marks, but I think Saquon's going to take a lot of that pressure off of Jalen. So it's going to be interesting to see, where they fall with this new defense. And I think it's going to take them a year, Kate, to get Fangio, because it was the same thing with players down here in Miami when he was down here. It takes a little while to pick up his system and what he's asking. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of coverage, man-on-man coverage, a lot of one-on-one. So it's going to be an interesting factor to see if there's some players that are still going to need to be added to this defense. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I can't get past the turnovers. They had 2 pick sixes all last year. I think they only had 9 interceptions. They only had 2 pick sixes. When I looked at Jalen's numbers, he had 23 touchdowns and 15 interceptions. Mm-hmm. That's not even 2-1. I mean, at least Dak was clearly 4-1, 36
right.
Right. Not even, he can't even get to 2-1.
Which is giving us the question marks.
It's a big deal. You can't, when your
mark.
defense is struggling, you can't turn the ball over and give the opponent good field position and free shots in the red zone.
Exactly. But I also feel that Jalen was a little bit more injured than what he let on last year as well. So I think that probably led to a lot of things at the end of the season kind of collapsing. So I think that was part of it as well. So,
I feel like we've had that exact conversation about 5 or 6 quarterbacks in this league. When is the NFL going to have an independent medical person evaluating some of these players and making the decision on whether or not they can play like they do with concussion protocols with some of these other injuries? Because I think these players are gamers and they want to be in there. Yeah. But we saw it with Trevor Lawrence last year. I've seen it here with Deshaun Watson. Some of Baker Mayfield, some of them play hurt, and it's a detriment to the team because they're not 100% and they don't play well, and they won't just admit that they physically can't play. You need an independent third party to come in and say, no, you're sitting another week.
Well, you just need your team physician to step up and take the helmet like they ended up doing.
They're not ever gonna.
Well, they did with Mahomes that one game with his ankle. Andy Reid had his helmet taken away, and he was pissed. You saw him on the sidelines.
Yeah, he was. No, you're right. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was. Yep. I mean, I also think of Matthew Stafford because that's just him. He can play, like, every single bone in his body will be broken. He's not going to say a word and go right back out there on the next play. So,
Lisa, will we see Kenny Pickett at all this year?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because of Barkley. I honestly really think they brought him in to keep Jalen in the pocket. So I would probably say they're going to try to focus might be a little bit more on his health this year to keep him from, I think they'll have design plays because he's a dynamic athlete. I mean, he's still a dual threat quarterback. So you're still always going to have to keep mindset of that, and he'll run. It like you guys just said, if he's got tweaking, it doesn't matter. If he sees 10 yards in front of him, he's going to the sticks. He's going to move the chains. So, keeping him down. But I think Saquon was brought in purposely to try to keep him a little bit more in the pocket, do some, option plays and stuff like that, give him some, So I honestly think that we won't see him. Hopefully not. I'd hate to see anybody get injured, but he is still a dual threat quarterback. Anything can happen. So bringing Pickett in to me just adds that extra blanket of security if he does go, or, if they say, yeah, look, you're going to sit down a couple games. So.
Yeah. I think we need to move on to the next team in the list. This is where the rest of the show gets painful. We're going to talk about some football teams that were not good last year.
Sorry, guys.
I was going to, when we started this, I was going to say, at least we can't call them the NFC least anymore, but maybe that's Dallas and Philly. I think we're at the least I'm sorry, the least portion of our program, with the New York Giants, finished last year 6-11. They started the season 2-8. It was a brutal, rough go to get going, but they did end it 4-3. Like they ended it better than they started it. Lisa, was that better quarterback play? Like we had Tyrod Taylor last year, right? Did we have Daniel Jones? Like I couldn't even remember who was under center in New York.
No, he got hurt. It was that Tommy DeVito.
Oh,
Remember
Tommy
he
DeVito.
came in and he had a couple. He racked out a couple good games because remember all his family kept coming to the game and they kept showing that and So but then he just like I said towards the end they just kind of fizzled out a little bit and kind of figured him out a little bit. But I think they signed Drew Lock, right? Drew Lock's on the roster now, so he'll be a backup to Daniel Jones and. They're still going to go with that Jones. So now you talk about beige. There you go, baby.
I don't know if he is a level under beige.
Danny Dimes, man. I'll tell
you. Did they get anybody to help Daniel out this year? Not so
Allen
much.
Robinson.
Allen
Robinson. Yeah. Forgot about that.
He's the Dre of football.
Isaiah McKenzie, they brought him. So, I mean, a couple guys to kind of help. Devin Singletary's are just on defense. And then Miles Boykin. But, I mean, nothing truly to really help him out. Who did they draft? Malik Neighbors out of LSU. I think that will actually be a very big help. I think that'll be a very big help. But, yeah. Those were the biggest. Obviously, they lost Saquon.
He was one of my favorite wide receivers in the draft, and I thought the Giants needed a weapon. I didn't know that they would take him. I thought they would go after someone else. I can only hope and pray for his sake that he and Daniel have been spending time together and that they click and that they work well together because he's got all the talent and all the ability. But if you and your quarterback aren't on the same page and don't click, how many times have we seen these great receivers just they don't have a rhythm with their quarterback? I'm hoping they do because he's a good kid and he's got a lot of talent. I do like me some LSU wide receivers. Can't help it.
They're beasts.
They're very good.
And they're going to need every bit of preseason because, like I said, Daniel Jones isn't expected to start training camp on the PUP list. So hopefully he can get out there and get the reps because, like I said, that coming off ACLs, you got to be careful with these quarterbacks in the preseason. So hopefully they'll get the rapport, like you said, Kate, because they're going to need the work because he's got a lot of new weapons. It just worries me coming off that ACL and losing Barkley and changing the whole dynamics of that backfield a little bit. It's like, man, you're going to have to keep these guys on reads and X's and O's because you're going to need to know where the blitzing guy comes because if he gets hit on that blind side, it's going to be bad.
It's done.
So
we have our new beige. He's eggshell.
He's eggshell.
He's beige and he's fragile. He's breakable.
He is.
I like that.
I like that a lot. Thank you, Kristen. I was just looking at their preseason schedule. They actually host the Detroit Lions.
Yep.
And then they travel to Houston.
They have a joint practice.
And then they travel to Houston, and then they get the Jets. So depending on how Detroit and Houston, how they approach the preseason, I mean, both of those teams are pretty well set. Both of those teams, they don't have a lot to work through the way like the Giants and some other teams do. They don't have new quarterbacks. They don't have the Jets. We'll see if Aaron Rodgers is going to play this year or not. But it looks like to me a nice couple teams for them to start with to figure out what they've got, to get Daniel some reps, to get Malik some. He'll be facing some very good defenses if they put, even their second stringers, if they don't put their starters in because it's preseason, there's some depth in both Detroit and Houston in the defensive secondary that'll get him a little welcome to the NFL. So it might be all right. It might be all right.
Big Red asked a decent question. What's the Giants' defense look like? I think I was going to say serviceable, but I don't even know if it's serviceable right now. It's not pretty. It's not pretty.
They gave up a lot of yards last year,
which
was part of their problem. Looking at the scores from the games and stuff, gave up a lot of yardage. I'm looking up right now their turnover ratio, because that's one of my favorite stats. I'm a turnover girl. If I can find it, I'll let you know. Every team's different.
Stat boy.
We need a stat boy.
We do.
Instead of a pool boy, we could get a stat boy.
Yeah.
12. So I mean, they were positive on the turnover ratio. I mean, their defense, they gave up yards, but they didn't give up a lot of points. They just couldn't score any points last year. So their defense might be okay if they can actually put points on the board. The problem is, like Sonia said, you got rid of Saquon Barkley. So now who's going to run the ball for you? If defenses are now going to, all they have to worry about is Daniel Jones throwing the ball, it could be a rough year for the Giants. We'll see.
Yeah, because I don't expect to see him in the preseason at all. I really don't.
That part.
I thought he was on the hot seat last year, to be honest with you. I think they gave him I would have loved to have been in the room because my guess was, and I thought a lot of other people thought too, a lot of people thought he was going to be gone. I really think they just took a deep breath and said, okay, one more year.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been a Brian Daboll fan.
So
I've watched him coach for a lot of years. He coached here for a while, special teams. Didn't understand what he was doing then. Don't understand what he's doing in New York. But you're right, Lisa. They gave him a lot of rope last year.
It was I think he's going to start the season out on the hot seat. And I think they unexpectedly gave him one more year because I think a lot of people were expecting him to go. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see. Because like I said, you brought in Nathan Rourke, the Canadian quarterback, because they need quarterbacks in training camp because, Daniel's going to be limited to everything they're going to be doing. Adapting to that new offensive line, that new offense, new offensive players, that's going to be key for them to keep Jones healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
agreed.
Speaking of head coaches that are on the hot seat, Dan Quinn in Washington, they were 4-11 last year. They started the season 4-5.
But that was Dan's first year, though, right?
In a row. They lost the last 8 games of the season. That's got to leave a bad taste in your mouth if you're an NFL player and your last 8 games were losses. Do you come into the season with a chip on your shoulder, or do you come in feeling like you are the dregs of the NFC East and why bother?
I think I would come in.
That's what we could have named them. The Washington Dregs.
Sorry. Right.
Poor Dan Quinn.
Bless their hearts. Thank you,
Bless
Big
their
Red.
hearts is really all
Bless
you can say.
Bless their
heart.
Tony, did they do anything in the offseason worth talking about?
They got rid of Dan Quinn. They got rid of Riverboat Ron. Bless his heart. I think he tried, but it just ran out. And so they brought in Dan Quinn, and I think that probably has given them a little bit of an oomph. At least in the offseason, they seemed kind of excited about that. They drafted Jaden Daniels, quarterback, in the draft. I think that was a pretty good move. I like that, being able to develop and grow with your quarterback. So I think that's probably a good thing. They brought in Zach Ertz, tight end, very experienced tight end. And Austin Eckler came to visit them as well. So that's a good one. They also have Bobby Wagner, which a very, very good defensive player. So I think
heart emojis from Dana. She's a big Bobby Wagner fan.
Yeah, she loves Bobby Wag. So there's that. Oh, they also drafted Mike. I can never say his name. Mike Sanders still to their defense from Michigan, who's fantabulous. So I think that their defense will be a little bit better.
I mean, they were plus 14 on turnover ratio last year. They just didn't seem in the stretch like they could figure out how to win a game. They couldn't get out of their own way. Just tripping all over and their quarterback situation isn't good either.
That quarterback room was atrocious.
Yeah.
It kind of still is. I mean, when you look at their quarterback room, it's kind of ironic because you got Marcus Mariota, who was the second pick in the draft who was a Heisman Trophy winner. You got Jalen Daniels, who was a Heisman Trophy winner, second pick of the draft. So you have 2 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks on your roster. But Jalen Daniels was taken in the first round. So what's that tell you about me when I tell you a quarterback's taken in the first round? He better be starting. He got to play.
He got to play.
So that's just me. Like I said, I've always had that mentality. Players taken in the first round. It should be players that are ready to go day one. So Willie, I don't know right now. Pretty much when you read everything, it's Mariota's job to lose. Honestly, I think that they'll, just try to bring Jalen around. I don't think they're going to rush him in, which, like I said, it might not be bad right now with these dual threat quarterbacks. You don't want them running out. If you don't know a player, you can't read the defenses quick yet because the game's fast when you get up to this level, running for your life. But to me, that's the only way you learn. Can't learn by holding the chart. To me, you got to get out there and start being a leader for your team and get respect to the guys. And
didn't they draft Sam Hartman too?
Yep, Hartman's on there. So is Jeff Driscoll.
Yep.
Remember Jeff Driscoll?
Oh, Jeff Driscoll is
right.
I am
right. So, like I said, they got a quarterback room, but it's just eggshell.
Oh, I got to go look him up. Lord.
Yeah.
And
Big Red asked how long has Josh Norman been gone from Washington? It's been about 5 years. He last played in 2019. So, yeah, it's been a while. He's bounced around since then. I mean, he's just bounced around, period. But he's bounced around since then.
Yep. Jeff Driscoll, 31 years old. Just turned 31 in April.
I mean, the Commanders were minus 14 on turnover ratio. They're, Sam Howell, when he played, was through 21 touchdowns and 21 interceptions. I mean, he's consistent.
Yeah.
They have ball security. Again, I think they're maybe that's the key to this whole division is ball security.
But hey, when you weren't too bad. You said you're plus on the defensive side of the game. But when you're low ball, there's only one way to go up. The only one way is go up a little bit. So you'd have to see if you're a Commanders fan that you're kind of hoping for some improvement this year. Hopefully you'll knock it out of the park with Jalen Daniels and he'll come along and be the Heisman Trophy quarterback that so many teams just desperately draft Heisman Trophy winners that just turn out to be duds in the NFL. They're great in college football. We talked about that some players are just made for college. Tim Tebow, Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, when you start going – Marcus Russell, when you start talking about that, when's the last time we had a Heisman Trophy quarterback that was in the elite status?
Cam Newton.
Yeah, I do expect them to be better, though. I do expect them to be better than 4-13. I don't know how much better, but the Giants as well. I mean, those single-digit wins in this division is not gonna. Nobody's going to keep their job for long with single digit wins. So we'll see. There should be some improvement.
If you can push this team over 500 this year, that's a huge win. And you just build off that, and so take it as a Commander fan. If you push over 500 and you're treading in the right direction, awesome. But if you start treading into that single digit under 500, you got to start thinking about some things.
I mean, the Commanders are still in the hunt for Brandon Ayuk. They're I don't know them. There's like 3 or 4 teams that everybody's talking about, and the Commanders is one of the teams that seems to be in the hunt. So I think that would be a big get for them.
That dude looks like Mike Tomlin's son. I swear to God, he looks just like Mike Tomlin in the face. Check it out. He does.
Mike Tomlin, you got some splaining to do.
Goodness gracious, that dude looks
like Lord, you do.
Thank you. Look at that face. He looks like Mike Tomlin.
Oh, I wish I could put this up on the screen. If you just Google image, there's a picture of him in his uniform, and he's got one of those
he looks like Mike Tomlin
that covers up his head and his chin because it was cold, and you can just see this part of his face. Looks just like Mike Tomlin.
He does.
I don't know if it's that expression.
There's another one of him that he's got like a beanie hat on.
Yeah.
If you didn't do a double take, you would think it was Mike Tomlin.
Oh, it almost looks like they photoshopped Mike Tomlin's face onto it.
I swear to God, he does.
Lisa, I never noticed that
expressions.
before. I think
I
think
know,
on
right?
that note,
He does. Mike
we
Tomlin
should
has
wrap
that
up the show today.
when people look up, he does this. He kind of puts his chin up like that. Mike, he does the same exact thing and looks just like him.
I'm gonna reach out to ancestry.com and see
Yep.
if they've got any files.
Do a check. Okay,
Yeah.
real quick, because Big Red asked the question, what would it take for Washington to make a playoff run? I think better defense. Their offense has to get it together. I think
Yes.
wow, very much
Yes.
so. Thank you, Lisa.
Right?
Thank you, Lisa. I think they need quarterback play. They need
Yeah.
consistent, good quarterback play. If they can,
And some
I'm gonna
good
call
CJ Stroud level rookie season
to make the playoffs next year, because Dallas and the Eagles are struggling. You could see them coming back to the pack. I just don't know if Washington or the Giants did enough to get past them.
Yeah, I just don't know.
We will answer that question and many more
Mm-hmm.
in September when we do our Pick'em show, and you can see what we think about that. Sonia,
When
what
we
division
pick.
are we doing next week?
Next week, we are bringing it home and we are talking about the AFC East, Lisa's division. Yes. So, all you Dolphins fans, Buffalo Bill fans, New York Jet fans, and Patriot fans, it's your division next week. So excited to bring it home with those guys. I think last week we kind of talked about the Bills possibly having an identity crisis last year. I'll agree, but we're going to get into that. It's going to be a good talk next year. And yes, it would be ironic, Big Red. So yes, we are going to go from the NFC East over to the AFC East, and we're going to preview that next week. So make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Make sure you Donkey's Place, Camden, Mount Holly, Medford. Thanks again, Donkeys. Make sure you check out that. Hit up our Fanatics store, grab some Olympic gear, grab tailgate gear, grab whatever you need.
Everything but Taylor Swift gear.
Yeah, we don't have Taylor Swift gear.
We do not. Have a good week, y'all.
Sorry. Bye, you guys.